I bought this salvaged 2009 Honda CRV from auction, and you will be shocked when I tell you how much I actually ended up paying for it. From the looks of it, obviously I had to replace the rear hatch and the rear bumper, since that was the main collision point for which insurance declared this car as total loss. And this was my first time buying a car from auction, and I made some mistakes. If you're wondering how to buy a salvage car from an auction, in this video, I'm gonna go through a rundown of all the costs I accumulated on fixing and registering this car, and how much money I actually made selling this as a rebuilt title car. Alright, so just to baseline the cost, I ended up winning the bid for only 1,500 Canadian dollars, which is about 1,000 USD in today's exchange. And I bought the car with absolutely no mechanical problems and perfectly run and drive condition. One of the most significant problems that I encountered after purchasing the car is that the previous owner was a dog mom, and the car was filled with variety of animal shedding. I don't know a thing about detailing, but I ended up cleaning the car myself to save up on detailing costs, and lucky me, I got some collectible 40-year-old penny back. I took the car to the nearest van wash, which sure looks like the CRV saw its first car wash in a few years. And check it out, the car looks as good as new. I am happy with the results after spending hours cleaning and detailing. The car looks absolutely phenomenal. Now it's time to do some maintenance. I'm gonna inspect the engine air filter. It's pretty simple. Unclip the housing container, loosen the hose clamp with a 10mm screw, give it a little wiggle, and it should come out nice and easy. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this air filter with the MotoMaster engine air filter. And here's the manufacturer model for your reference. All done. Clip back the air filter housing, quick and simple. Next, I'm gonna fill the windshield washer reservoir with -45° de-icer fluid, and that should make it easy for me to operate during the snow. Next, I'm gonna check the cabin air filter, which is pretty easy too. Open the glove box, unhook the dampener arm, pull down from both sides, one side at a time, and unclip the air filter frame. This is the worst cabin filter I bet you will see on the internet today. This air filter looks like it is from 2009, which is the make of the car. I feel bad for what the CRV had to go through. Throw out the old filter and clean your filter frame if required. Then slide in the new filter. I'm gonna use a MotoMaster cabin air filter, and you can see the model on the packaging. Slide the frame back in the cabin until you hear a click. Engine air filter and cabin air filter are pretty simple to change and are very essential for the health of the car as well as the health of the people breathing inside the car. So definitely take the time to check up on them and replace them. Since we're talking about preventive measures, I want to take a second and thank our sponsor for today's episode. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by AMPBANK. AMPBANK manufactures the best portable air compressors / power banks in the market. I was actually surprised by the power that is stored in this palm-sized device. You can use this portable air compressor to inflate your tires or use this to power any of your devices. Every product comes serialized, so you know you are covered under warranty. Today I have with me the AT003, which is such a great addition to my glove box because you never know when you might need to reinflate your tires on the go. Beautifully packaged box, and you get the palm-sized air compressor with an air outlet and charging ports as well as a torch. Unlike other air compressors in the market, this is 100% wireless, and this can power up to 4 tires in a single charge. You can select the pressure you want or get preset pressure according to your application such as car, bike, or your favorite ball, and also change the unit of measure if you want to. Make sure to confirm your recommended front and rear pressure on your door tag, and simply just plug it in, press the start button, and it will automatically stop inflating once it reaches your preset pressure. This portable air compressor is honestly something that everybody should have in their glove box because it is now this easy to inflate your tires with the AMPBANK portable air compressor. I definitely recommend getting one of these AMPBANK devices. I'll make sure to put the Amazon link in the description so you can get your hands on one of these bad boys. Huge shout out to AMPBANK for sponsoring today's episode. Now let's get back to it. If you purchased a car from an auction, you'll find these dry erase liquid chalk markers used for writing stock number, year, and other related information on the windshield or windows, and there are a couple of ways to remove them, such as using glass cleaner and a razor combination. But in today's video, I'm going to use a common kitchen sponge and glass cleaner to remove these markings because the sponge will not scratch your glass, as you'll see in this video. Now let's have a look at these yellow headlights. I'm not surprised to see this much salt on these headlights after seeing what the cabin filter looked like. I'm gonna start off by masking the headlights with masking tape, and I also like to reuse paper pliers that I keep getting in my mailbox. It's important to take note that these headlights are pretty old, so I'm gonna try my best to restore them to their original shine. I'm gonna start by first cleaning off the headlights and wiping them using a tack cloth. Once it's dry and free of any residual debris, I'm gonna start off by wet sanding with 320 grit sandpaper. Notice how I'm alternating the direction of sanding as well as continuously spraying the headlight with water to keep debris out and to keep the headlights wet. And that's because the aim here is to remove as much salt as possible while also washing heavy residue away. I'm gonna gradually increase the grit size from 320 to 400 and up to 2000 grit, and this way I will be able to achieve a smooth headlight surface. Remember, your headlight surface needs to be as smooth as possible for the clear coat to bond to. Now it's time to do the other side. I'll repeat the same exact process, starting with 320 grit and gradually increasing to 2000 grit. And uneven sanded surface is one of the reasons why clear coat starts cracking on your headlight. If your headlights look consistently foggy when dry, that means you did a really good job. The key here is to make sure you alternate your pattern of sanding and keep the work area wet. We're almost done here. Now it's time to polish. First, I'm gonna use a 3-inch polishing wool pad on a cordless drill and Meguiar's 105 Ultra Cut compound, which will be then followed by Meguiar's 205 Ultra Finishing Polish. It's basically the same principle. We use the coarse grit first and finish with a fine polish. You want to make sure to evenly spread out the compound by gently tapping around the work area, and mix the polish with the low speed first, and once you have covered the work area, then apply the higher speed your drill can support and polish with overlaying passes. If the first pass is horizontal, then the next one should be vertical in order to achieve a consistent polish. I like to go again with another fresh round of the same polish so I can have a cleaner cut finish. Now I'm gonna use a 205 Ultra Finishing Polish with the same method. First tap around the work area and then spread the polish consistently. Then start polishing in a single direction with overlaying passes followed by a perpendicular path. I'm done polishing one side and check the difference. I cannot believe the headlight went from this yellow faded look to this clean OEM look. I'm going to repeat the same process on the other headlight and we'll see the results after the time lapse. I'm gonna let the headlight polish stay for a while and come back around a week later to seal the deal with a thick layer of clear coat. And the reason is because the fresh polish residue might react with the clear coat. So I'm gonna let it dry up for a week. I'm gonna install a 9-inch CarPlay screen because I am bored of these buttons on my 2009 Honda EXL to look from this to this. Since I will have a CarPlay, I don't really need a distracting phone holder anymore. Let's get started. You will need a plastic pry tool of any kind, a ratchet to remove the 8mm bolts which you can get from the nearest hardware store, and optionally, I always like to have a window cleaner and a microfiber cloth. Alright, I'm gonna first remove this trim around the gear knob, and that's because it makes it easier to remove the AC controller and I can get access to the two 8mm bolts behind it, which you will see in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and put the car in neutral gear so I can have access to these 8mm bolts and start removing the trim. It took some struggle to remove the trim, but slowly and steadily I was able to take it out and pull the AC controller along with it. I'm gonna unplug the AC controller and keep it aside for later. Here are the two 8mm bolts I mentioned earlier. There are two at the bottom and two on the top. To get access to the two bolts on the top, I'm gonna remove the trim on the top here so that I can pry open the AC ducts. The easiest way to do this is by first prying open the AC duct and then pulling it towards you. Once the AC duct trim is out, we don't technically have to unplug it. For now, I will just keep it out of my way so I can remove the 4 bolts of the radio unit. Alright, after removing the bolts, gently pull the head unit outwards and it should come out easy. And now I will unplug the OEM connections. And before I do that, I want to see where the OEM connections are actually going so that I can refer back to it in case I need it. As you can see, there are 4 connectors going into the OEM radio unit, and by default, there is a port left empty from factory. To remove these connectors, simply press on the clip on the top or on the side to unlock the connectors and they should come out easy. Alright, the factory radio unit is completely out, and as you can see on the back side, there are 4 ports that I disconnected, and surprisingly, this doubled-in OEM unit is very heavy. Now let's unbox the 9-inch intelligent CarPlay screen. The reason why I chose this specific CarPlay unit is because this CarPlay unit is unlike any other screens available in the market, because this screen supports 360 camera, which you will find in the latest cars only. And that gives you the bird's eye view of the car surroundings while you reverse, while turning sides, or when you want to park the car. Inside the box, you will find all the looms and harnesses for this screen, which I will explain in a second. The first package has the GPS and RCA cables, which is for audio and video. The next package is the OEM to aftermarket converter wires, and this has the inbuilt antenna and other audio and video cables which we will connect to the CarPlay screen. Next is the 9-inch CarPlay screen itself, which impressively is very securely packaged. Now let's unpack the unit. The product looks absolutely stunning, very lightweight, and feels very high quality. No broken edges or clips, as you can see. This unit also comes with an inbuilt fan to keep the processor cool for a smooth user experience. I'm gonna put a link in the description. If you guys are interested, do check it out. Along with this unit, you will also get 2 USB connectors so you can connect external devices such as a flash drive or an ADAS dash camera. Next cable is the RCA, which is for audio, video, external subwoofer, AUX cable, mic, etc. And this is the reverse camera cable separately for an aftermarket reverse camera. And this is the GPS antenna, which is a simple screw right there. And finally, this is the power cable, which converts the OEM wiring and powers the CarPlay screen. The power cable includes an antenna, steering wheel control, and other features. Alright, now this is the exciting part. I'm going to connect the 9-inch CarPlay screen and see where it sits. And believe me, this screen is so light. I feel like I literally took off 5 kilograms as a weight reduction. The connector ports has the same shape of the OEM connectors, which fits right in. Alright, now I've placed the screen in its position and I will turn on the car to see if it works. As soon as I put the car in battery mode, the screen turned on super fast. So satisfying to peel this plastic. The CarPlay works absolutely stunning and is very smooth. The steering wheel controls work smoothly, and even if they don't, you will also have the option to configure your steering wheel buttons to a certain action from the CarPlay screen. I am very happy with the screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and close up everything the same way I took them out. The CarPlay screen sits tight because of the supporting trims on the top and bottom, which is why I didn't even have to use a single screw in the whole installation. Make sure to apply your parking brakes and put the car in neutral gear before putting the AC controls to make it easier. And I did take out the external mic from the side of the AC control, and I'm gonna tuck it in later on. Check this out. The CarPlay screen absolutely looks phenomenal. I am super happy with the screen, the quality, and the overall looks. This 15-year-old Honda CRV is almost modern now, which I guess will be more modern with the 360 camera. The colors just pop out great. Siri works absolutely smooth with the CarPlay. The map is accurate, and now I can easily command my car to navigate or play on Spotify. I can always watch YouTube or browse the internet when I'm not driving. Let's check the audio. This is the camera wire here. As you can see, it is labeled with rear, front, left, and right. So here's the game plan. I'm gonna go ahead and connect these cables with the cameras first, just to see how it works on the screen. And although today I'm not going to drill and install the camera completely on the car, but I just want to show you the functionality of the camera and how to use it and what it looks like. All right, here's the camera set I got with the screen. In the camera package, you get a drill bit to drill all the compatible holes for the cameras. And here are the cameras. And each wire is labeled, as you can see. And that way you can connect the camera wires with the camera and the head unit here. All right, here are the cameras. In total, you get 4 cameras, one front, a rear, and one left and a right. All right, so the idea is you take these connectors and connect them with these long extension wires, and you can color code and match each extension cable to the plug that comes from the head unit here. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect all these cameras and see what it looks like in this head unit. All right, on these extension cables here and the camera, you can see here there is a small arrow here, and that arrow you can match it with the other cable here and then just simply plug it in. All right, I'm all done with the connection of all the cables here. So basically, here's what I did. I connected all the 4 extension cables with the color-coded plugs, and then I connected the cameras to them. All right, so here are the apps. I'm just gonna scroll and find the 360 app, and that's right here. So there you go. So now I have a color feed on all of my cameras here. All right, so this is the front side, the front camera. There it is. So this is my front camera, and here is the gear knob. And here's the camera, the steering wheel, and everything. And for example, if I go ahead and select my rear end, this is my reversing camera, and this should be this one. There you go. So for example, I could be reversing, and obviously it's mirrored because it's reverse camera, and so on and so forth. So here's the side camera on the left side. So as you can see, this screen moves and this camera also moves. There you go. So you get the idea here. So what I can do now is I can either hardwire all the cameras to go inside where it's supposed to be and find out where the drill position should be and hardwire. And I can put the front camera, rear camera, left and right all together. If your steering wheel looks as bad as this one, this is an OEM steering wheel and it is so faded, worn out, and looks completely bad. And I'm gonna make the steering wheel to look from this to this. So currently, whatever material I had before from the factory, it looks completely worn out, and even when I tried cleaning it, it just wouldn't come out. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is unpack this. This steering wheel cover also comes with a stitching kit attached to it, and inside the stitching kit, you will find the instruction on how to stitch the OEM steering cover. You will find 2 sets of threads, a reel of double-sided tape, and a trim tool. All right, this is the steering wheel cover that I'm gonna install today, and look at the quality of the material. This is an original Italian leather that comes for the Honda OEM models. So the first step would be to test fit this steering wheel cover and see where it sits. Alright, I've put the steering wheel cover now. As you can see, these were all pre-cut from before as a template. You just have to align it together and tuck the excess material inside. And you can adjust accordingly before you start stitching. After you're done adjusting and aligning the steering wheel cover to where you want it to be, and since I'm happy with the positioning, I'm going to go ahead and put some double-sided adhesive taping inside in a manner that will make the steering wheel cover stay where it is, and then I can go ahead and start stitching. And before I start putting the tapes all over completely, I'm going to go ahead and line up the new steering wheel cover stitching with the OEM stitching. I'm just gonna have to see where it touches each other, and then I'm gonna have to rotate, adjust accordingly, just to make sure it is lined up properly. Alright, I've put double-sided tape on all the edges and I'm gonna start peeling them off. But before I do that, I'll peel these stickers off and stick it properly. Tuck the material in so that the steering wheel cover is in good position. So I'll turn the steering wheel completely upside down and I'm gonna start stitching the big section first, and then I'll move ahead with the small 2 sections. Alright, I've tucked in this piece here. It looks really nice, and I'm gonna go ahead and start stitching from this corner here and complete this big round first, and then I'll proceed one by one on the sections. To start stitching, I have the thread and the needle that was provided inside the package. So now I'm going to show you how to prepare the needle and the thread in order to start stitching. And this is how I like to connect the thread and the needle. So I just put the thread in, There you go, first shot. And I like to keep at least 10 centimeters extra and paired with the long thread. I don't have to tie any knots. So whenever I'm stitching, I just have to make sure I take both the threads out and continue my path in a zigzag manner. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is tie a knot inside so that it stays sturdy together when I start stitching it this way. I'm going to do my first stitch from the inside and take it out this way, and I will tie a knot here. So now I can be sure that this will not come out and I can start stitching from the outside. Alright, check this out. I am super happy with the results. The quality of the material is really good. It looks absolutely phenomenal. Check out the stitching work that I did and I'm really happy. And the main concept of this is you can do it completely by yourself. And this brings us to today. I need to paint match the rear end of the car to the rest of the body. And I'm going to try to do this completely by myself at my residence without any fancy tools. And not just the exterior, but also the interior of the rear hatch, so that the idea is it would be very difficult to say that this rear end was painted in the first place. Obviously, with a bit more observation, you can tell if any panel has been repainted before, but you get the idea. Here you can see that there is a tab that covers the bolt for the bumper, and the tab has an OEM glacier blue color. That would be ideally the same color of the interior panel, which currently has this brown paint. Now, this 2009 CRV has been facelifted from the rear end to a 2011 model because that was the only available used spare parts at that time, which if you think about it is not a bad thing. And it does look better than before on the rear end. Something to notice is that this paint kit is a waterborne paint, which is also used by most OEMs and shouldn't be wet sanded. I'll speak more about this in a couple of minutes. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I bought this rear hatch used and hence it also has a couple of rust spots. But the good news is that when I inspected the rusted area, the rust doesn't go beyond the metal. So I can technically sand off the rust until the bare metal and then apply body filler to repair this area. The first step would be to sand. And for this, I will first clean the rear area and mask off the areas I don't want to paint. I'm going to use a heat gun to slowly remove the badges, which is an alternate method from using thread to cut the sticker. Alright, masking is done and I had to remove the mud guards so that I could paint the bumper completely. I'm going to start wet sanding the work area, and according to the instructions, I'll start scuffing with the 400 grit step 3 blending sandpaper from 3M so I can create a nice bonding surface for the primer. As you can see, as soon as I start sanding off with the 400 grit, I can definitely notice that the OEM paint started disappearing, and that is because whoever painted this rear door before never actually used a primer and directly painted the base coat over the metal panel, which explains why there is so much rust under the number plate lights. Weatherproofing is really important when it comes to metals that are prone to be exposed to a lot of moisture. Although I could have removed the Honda logo trim, but to do that I would have to remove the rear back panel of the door shell, and I'm aware of the extent of the rust appearance on this panel, and it is highly likely that it will come back in the next decade. But for now, I'm gonna work with what I have on hand. I've worked on rust restoration before, and from that experience, I'm gonna be able to complete this restoration process a little quicker. Alright, sanding the rust till the bare metal is complete. So now I'm going to use a Bondo body filler, and here is one of the ways to mix this. Take a golf ball size putty and put a line of hardener right across the body filler, and then mix it in a way that you have consistent color of the filler. And be mindful that you have at most 3 to 4 minutes before the body filler starts completely hardening. So make sure you press and apply the filler on your work area within that time frame. Here are some of the rookie mistakes that I'm making. The first mistake is I'm putting way more body filler than required, and also on areas I don't need, which means I would have to put in more work on sanding the extra material for no reason. The next time I do a body filler work, I can take it as a lesson from this experience that I need to only focus on my work area, and next time I will try to wipe off any excess body filler when they're wet and easy to wipe, because once it dries up, it'll be a lot of work for me to sand and smoothen the panel. Alright, I'm back after a couple of hours break, and it appears that the body filler is completely dry and solid, so I can start sanding off the excess area to get a smooth body panel. I'm going to start with the 60 grit sandpaper, which is a very coarse sandpaper to remove bigger irregularities just like the hardened body filler, and then slowly move on to 80 grit and higher to make the area smoother. It is very important that you make sure you wear a mask or a respirator. To speed up the process, I'm going to use my Shawl 7-inch rotary polisher, and depending on your work area, you may or may not need a machine for sanding. As you saw in my previous rust repair video on my 2007 Lexus, I did the whole sanding process by hand and it was completely doable. It's always recommended to clean all sanding dust and spray some water on the floor before you want to apply any kind of primer or paint. I'm going to refer back to the instruction sheet, and since we have completed step 1 and step 2, for step 3, I have to wash the car thoroughly with soapy water and mask the area completely for step 4. Masking is almost done, and just to check my work, if I run my fingers over the rusted work area, it is not that uneven, and I know I'm touching the surface with my bare fingers, but I'm going to use a degreaser wipe provided in the paint kit. Here's the package I received from Scratches Happen. Right off the box, you get a pair of painter's gloves, a primer, 1K clear coat, the color matched paint in a can, and alcohol wipes. As I mentioned earlier, the base coat and the primer are waterborne paint, which is also the same used by many OEMs, and these paint cannot be wet sanded or washed with water, or they're gonna wash away. So the idea is, first I'm gonna apply the primer, then 3 or 4 layers of base coats, and then secure it with 3 to 4 medium heavy layers of 1K clear coat. 1K clear coat reacts with the air and hardens, so it doesn't need any additional hardener of any kind, such as the 2K clear coat. Here's the main difference. 1K clear coat is ideal for touch-ups, small projects, and it is thinner in nature. But 2K clear coat has a catalyst inside and is thicker and provides higher quality, long-lasting shine. In general, I always prefer to use 2K clear coat, but I'm going to use the 1K clear coat provided in this paint kit. On the test card, I applied about 3 coats of base coat and topped it up with a couple of layers of clear coat. And at this point, I'm happy with the paint match, so I'm going to continue with the rest of the steps on the instruction sheet. The only time I can apply the degreaser is before applying the primer on the scuffed surfaces, and this will help any dirt and grease to wipe away easily. Alright, now I'm going to apply the primer, and there is a nice summary of dry times between all kinds of coats on the instruction sheet, which is really helpful to keep handy because I often forget everything. I'm going to shake the aerosol can for about a minute, and you will know you are mixing the contents well when you can see small dents appearing on the bottom of the can, and that is from the mixing ball inside. It's important to always test the nozzle first away from the work area. And since I'm happy with the spraying output, I'm going to apply 3 layers of primer, starting with first light coat and followed by 2 medium heavy coats. I'm gonna wait for about an hour or more after the final primer coat before I can dry sand the primer. Alright, it's the next day and I can see that the primer is completely dry from the masking tape around it. So now the next step on the instruction sheet is to dry sand the primer and feather out the edges. The objective here is to dry sand the primer to remove any nibs, dust, and small blemishes that may cause defect on the base coat. I'm gonna use the 3M 1000 grit sandpaper, and as soon as I start dry sanding, I can feel the rough surface become smooth after just a couple of passes. I don't really have to sand a lot, I just have to reach an acceptably smooth surface so the base coat can bond smoothly. Alright, dry sanding is done, so I'm wiping away all the sand dust using a clean, dry tack cloth. It is important to know what kind of paint you're using because not all paints are waterborne, and since the paint I'm using today I cannot apply any water or degreaser on the primer or on the base coat. Now it's time to paint. And for the base coat aerosol can, I have to shake it well for about 1 to 3 minutes so that the chemicals inside can mix thoroughly for the optimal result. I'm going to quickly run another pass with my heat gun just to make sure there is no moisture, and the high speed of the heat gun will also blow away any remaining dust. It's always important to test the nozzle first away from the work area so that you can get a consistent spray output without any spills or drops. The first base coat layer will be a light coat covering the work area so that the second and the third medium heavy coat can bond properly. As you progress to the second and third coats, you will notice the color become more and more mature and closer to the desired paint. But keep in mind the only way you can measure a paint match is after the final clear coat has dried off. I put a total of 4 layers of base coat. The first coat was very light and the remaining 3 were medium heavy coats. Alright, the paint has dried out properly after a couple of hours, so now I'm going to prepare the clear coat aerosol can by shaking it for about a minute first and then applying 2 to 3 medium to full coats. It is very important that you carefully remove the masking tape from the paint edges so that the clear coat can settle down properly and not peel along with the tape when it's completely dried off. Alright, it's the next day and let's check the paint quality. It does appear to have a slight darker shade of blue, and I did mention in the beginning there will be a bit of difference in shade when you compare a 15-year-old OEM paint to a fresh wet paint. Here's what it looks like under the sun. I wouldn't know as a regular person that the rear was repainted at some point, but to the professional eyes, obviously you can see that there's a bit of darker blue shade on the new paint as compared to the 15-year-old factory paint. On the rear exterior, the surface is a bit rough, as expected after a fresh coat of clear coat, which will be gone from polishing. And for the badges, as you can see, this is what I was talking about earlier on leaving a bit of residue as a hint for where the badges were previously. And this will help me directly paste the badges on top of the sticker residue. So now the only thing left to paint is the interior of the panels. Ideally, I should have painted the interior of the door panels prior to painting the exterior, but I'll take this as a lesson. And now I'm going to mask the exterior and paint match the interior of the rear hatch. There is a bit of overspray because I kept the rear hatch a bit gapped, which will help me blend in with the interior of the panel. The only thing different is I'm skipping the primer here and directly going to scuff the paint because it is not really important on what is on the inside. I'm going to still scuff it well so that the base coat can bond well. I already went ahead and masked off the bumper bolts. Now I can go ahead with a couple of layers of base coat paint followed by a couple of layers of clear coat. Alright, clear coating is done on the interior of the panels and I think it looks great. And because it's the interior of the door panel, I don't think there is much to focus on the cosmetic appearance apart from just getting the proper color match done. And I do understand that because I skipped the primer on the interior panel, the brown color underneath does have a little slight shade effect on this new paint, but as I said, it is not a priority focus right now for the interior of the panel cosmetically. And for anybody who is not very picky on the body panels of a 15-year-old car, this shouldn't be an issue with the paint. So the only thing left now is to polish the exterior of the new paint. And I'm going to do that after 72 hours as instructed by the manufacturer. Meanwhile, for the badges that I removed earlier, I'm going to use a double-sided heavy-duty 3M Scotch tape and cut to shape using a sharp cutting knife. Although this video is not sponsored, but I'll put the link in the description for every item I used in this video so you can do a complete paint job at home too. Finally, it's time to polish, and the concept is because it's a freshly painted surface, there are irregular, uneven surfaces which we need to cut by wet sanding and polishing to minimize the irregularity and get a smooth finished output for the light to reflect. Here's the bumper bowl tab with the OEM paint that I removed earlier, so now I'm going to put it back and hopefully the color should not be much variant. There you go. It doesn't seem to be a huge anomaly, but because I'm the one who painted it, I know that there is a bit of difference. However, I'm sure it is good to go. Now, the only significant thing I need to show you is remember when earlier I used my rotary polisher to sand off the excess body filler, I actually forgot to use an interface pad and this caused some deep sanding and now it looks a bit distorted if you look deep and hence some of the body filler work turned out uneven, which I'm not really proud of. I decided not to redo the body filler work again and that is because majority of it is going to be behind the number plate all the time. So it is not a high priority cosmetically. I definitely agree there is no reason to justify an unfinished job for this rust repair under the number plate light, but keeping in mind it is freezing cold outside and cosmetically it is not significantly visible for it to be redone again. I'm going to thoroughly wash this area with soap water and prepare it for polishing. I'm using a foam block wrapped with 2000 grit wet sandpaper and the idea here is to smoothen out the surface evenly without sanding deep, and as soon as I start sanding, I can feel the surface becoming smoother and smoother, and already I can see some reflections come back. After wet sanding with 2000 grit sandpaper, I'm going to thoroughly wash with soapy water and then clean the work area to get all the dirt and debris out. For this fresh paint job, I'm going to use the Meguiar's 105 Ultra Cut compound and polish the whole work area. And for the second stage, today I'm going to try out two different finishing polish. The first one is the Meguiar's 205 Ultra Finishing Polish and the other one is Meguiar's Ultimate Compound, which I haven't used before. For Meguiar's Ultimate Compound, the reviews are very positive, so I decided to test this out today. So I'm going to switch to a wool pad with Meguiar's 105 Ultra Cut compound to cut this rough sanded surface. Alright, on the left rear bumper, after the 105 Ultra Cut compound, I'm going to use the new Ultimate compound today using a black soft foam pad and compare the difference. And as you can notice, the rear bumper has a lot of curves and edges, so a 7-inch polishing pad is technically not an ideal choice, but I had to make it work with whatever I had in hand carefully without causing any scuff or damages. Alright, final stage of polishing is done and I think I'm happy with the results so far. So now finally I can put back the badges, and here's where I'm going to refer to the previous sticker residue to properly align and freshly stick the new badges in just about a few seconds. I am super happy with the results I could achieve for all the work I was able to do completely at home. It looks absolutely phenomenal, and under different angles, the shade appears a bit different on the new paint versus the old, which is very normal because the older paint is about 15 years old from the factory and the new paint is wet. It is not very noticeable to a general public who doesn't know that the rear hatch was another color before. And I think the polishing work is also satisfactory as I can see myself as a reflection on the body of the car, and since I'm not a professional yet, I think this is a good result. Check out the difference between the old paint and the new paint. The new paint does have a bit darker blue shade on it. For a first timer completely repainting the rear end of an SUV, I think this looks absolutely phenomenal and I'm happy with the results. This car was hit from the back, which then got its rear door and bumper replaced, and later I painted it to almost match the color all by myself at home. Let me know in the comments below what you think I should have done differently, and if you've noticed any other mistakes that I didn't mention before, so I don't repeat that on my next job. But overall, I think the result is satisfactory, although it has some blemishes. Alright, let's talk money. All this work on this salvaged Honda CRV, so what did it actually cost me? I'm going to talk about all the costs in Canadian dollars, and I'll put the conversion to US dollars on the screen. As you know, I won the bid for the car for 1,500 Canadian dollars. The purchase tax, buyer's fee, pull fee, online fee, and the platform fee additionally brought the purchase price to $2,196. After that, I had to get this car to a repair shop for inspection for structural and mechanical integrity, and that itself costed me $3,550, including parts. I know that is more than what I paid for the car itself, but as I said, this was my first time and I didn't know any better. And without accounting for any sponsored parts, couple of other additional costs that were accumulated for travel expenses, oil change, paint supplies, and registration costed me another additional $800. Fortunately, I was able to salvage some parts from the previous wrecked rear hatch, and that added a positive $30, which brings my total cost of ownership to $6,516. I posted this car in the marketplace and I mentioned in the description that this is a rebuilt car with work done on the rear end. And in just a couple of days, I got so many responses, so I ended up selling the car for $7,500, which I think is a fair market price. So this brings my total net profit to 984 Canadian dollars, which is approximately 15% profit margin. I think this is absolutely great for my first salvage rebuild, and I do intend to keep going and learning from every build so I don't repeat the same mistakes. Let me know in the comments below what do you guys think of this project, and make sure to subscribe to my channel because on the next episode, I'm going to reveal my new salvage rebuild project and I'm expecting to double my return on investment to 100% profit margin on this new build. If you guys enjoyed and learned something new in this episode, hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you on the next one.